Hey, I'm Amy with Creative Catapult Coaching,
And I'm Megan with Focus Like a Mother.
and we decided that we would talk about networking for episode number 2. That being said, we have prepped absolutely nothing for this one, but we were just talking about what happens as we're trying to build our businesses and going out and talking to people as a neurodivergent person can have some substantial anxiety with it. Surprisingly to me, I was just talking with somebody to get myself onto a volunteer committee, and I ended up feeling more stressed by the end of that call, even though there was nothing at stake, even though I liked the person, even though there was no conflict, compared to doing 2.5 hours of trying to get my accounting books to match. And I historically have hated accounting. So why did I suddenly find myself in this point of real stress, networking with somebody that I knew what the outcome was? Only time will tell, but I think it's got something to do with putting myself out there and being vulnerable.
Yeah, I think for me, so lately, the last almost a year ago, I started going to some local networking events. And the main one that I go to is every Friday. So I don't always go, but this year, one of my goals has been to try and go, um, partly to get out of the house and get out of my solopreneur, stay at home, work at home mom bubble. Um, and then also to try and get my business stuff going. But what I notice is I don't dread going to networking things. Um, I do if they're not ones I've been to before, so I generally only go to the same one. I've been invited as a guest to go to a couple other things um, earlier this year, and those were fine. I just haven't been back. But what I've found is going to the same one makes feels a lot more comfortable. But even still, even though I know a lot of the people there every week, I find myself, I have the same routine. So after the networking, the restaurant where we go in the morning for networking is very close to where our post box mailbox is. So I go from networking to checking our mail, and I usually stop at the gas station and get caffeine of some sort from myself and my husband and then come home. So it's like the comfort of a routine. I've been adding going to the coffee shop ahead of time, but what I do notice is I tend to sit in the gas station parking lot and just decompress. After I get the whole routine done, I
Uh-huh.
just sit there. And so it'll be like a half an hour from the time that the networking ends. Um, and it is only 5 to 7 minutes from my house to get to this place. So it'll be a half an hour after like it ends and I'm done before I actually get home. And even once I get home, sometimes I'll sit in the driveway too and just like exist for a few minutes before I go back into demands of everything else. So I just find it interesting that networking is even when you really want to do it, even when you have, a vested interest or you're excited to see the people that are there or, connect with people, it is exhausting.
That's interesting because some of times I remember 10 or 15 years ago when I started going to networking stuff, I really felt super uncomfortable and I didn't like it at all. As I've gotten to the point where I have a business and I feel more confident in talking about the business, I don't mind it nearly as much. And then a couple weeks ago, a colleague did a book launch and I went and it was, fine. I was there to support her. I had a very easy time talking to a couple other people that I met in person. One was a name I'd seen on email for years, and another was a colleague of the book releases. Um, but somebody that she knew, and we just kind of realized that we had practices in adjacent spaces, and so decided to have coffee. This one, I didn't have any anxiety over doing it, but yet putting myself on this committee meeting with a virtual coffee, far more anxiety inducing. Not sure what the difference is for me, but interesting to note that as I've done it longer, I really am getting to the point where some of it doesn't faze me, and other times I pretty much shut down. Sometimes before, sometimes after. I'm usually fine in the moment when I'm there.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think the ones that have structure, I do better with. So there was a local one last week that I didn't get to go to. Fitting them into my calendar, it's like it's not just the networking event, it's like I have to plan ahead. So there have been times where things have changed in the plan of our day, and my husband will see that I had it on the calendar as like a, hey, you could go to this if you feel like it, right? So there's one that's downtown that's for women in entrepreneurship. And a month or two back, um, our day had changed for whatever reason. I don't remember what happened, but I could have gone. And so in the morning, my husband said, hey, I saw that on your calendar. Did you want to go? And I was, oh, no, 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 no. I have to plan ahead. I have to know, like, this is what I'm doing. It's generally, it can't be like oh, hey, you can go to this now. Like, you can leave in an hour and head out. So it was like, nope, I have to mentally prepare myself. I'm not gonna go to that one today. That would be cool, but I needed to know yesterday that I was gonna be able to go today. Uh, but if there's structure and routine and I know what to expect, I do pretty well. The big thing that gets me with networking is the unstructured part. So the small talk at the end.
Interesting.
If it's obvious, like the whole song and dance of like, here's what I do for a business, here's what you do, we exchange cards, yada yada, or if I have a connection with something that the person is talking about, but the general small talk, I struggle with, and also the dead air time before the event starts, where you're
Mhm.
like standing there. So last Friday, I decided to just sit in my chair and just be and not
Uh-huh.
worry about like trying to fit into a little conversation group or like mingle with people. I'm not very good at mingling, I think. So I just decided that I had worked at the coffee shop and I had lots of like business things running through my head of stuff I had been working on. Um, and so I just sat in the chair and let my brain decompress and for once didn't try to mingle.
How
And
did
it
that
felt
work for
totally
you?
different.
What was different about it,
Um,
besides the
I
physical
felt
act of sitting and
a lot more comfortable and a lot more relaxed. So I didn't really think about the whole kind of spoon theory thing of like standing and mingling takes energy, like standing on top of all of that and
yeah,
thinking
so just
which
for the
group
record,
and
people not familiar with spoon theory is that it comes out of a lot of the chronic health issues, but that you're given a certain number of spoons per day and different activities take more or less number of spoons, kind of related to your physical and emotional energy. And when you're out of spoons, you're done. You can't really borrow from tomorrow's spoons because they haven't been put back in the drawer yet.
yes. And so I think mine's more like emotional energy in this case, but it was like allowing myself to just sit and be. And I wasn't the only person just sitting at the table, or sitting at a table, but it was a different approach. So I think I'm gonna try that again
Sounds
in the
like it
future.
worked well with for you to do something that really served your body and brain better, much more aligned with your energy and your interest.
Yeah, and I've noticed in the past, I will redirect or kind of hide behind something else. So like sitting at the table and making notes in my notebook or getting the thoughts out of my head gave me a little bit of clarity, but it also gave me a purpose. And so in the past, when I've had to do like mingling or small talk, even now
Mhm.
with kids, the kids become my buffer. In the past, it was my dog was my
Right.
buffer. Um, so yeah, it's just interesting thinking about the social dynamic and the social emotional demands of networking, in addition to focus, paying attention to what other people are saying, physical energy, all those different pieces sort of collide into one place. And
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 yet,
it's not like high risk. It's like if I mispronounce something or I'm not the only person there that's nervous,
right.
like
It's in, so do you prep mentally for what you want to do or what you want to get out of going into an event?
yes. So the events here locally that I go to a lot of times, the ones that I go to on Friday, the structure is generally kind of the same. We're mixing it up a little bit lately, but generally the local networking groups, they kick off the meeting and then you go around and everybody introduces themselves just so we all know who's there. And then you go into whatever the activity is for the networking, whether that's a presentation or um, this last week, they asked people to share things that they wanted advice from other
Mhm.
business owners on or something. But before the meeting, like the night before and the morning of, while I'm driving there, or all of that while I'm drinking my coffee, I'm thinking, like, what do I need to say in my little blurb about what I do? And well, if it's all people that I've met before, is what I'm gonna say gonna be different? So it's like trying to provide value and not just say, here's what I do. If you know people that need my services, send them my way. But instead, like asking, um, like this week will be, because I'm getting ready to launch my updated website. This week will be, hey, can everybody go to my domain and check out my website, give me feedback, share it on social media. That's going to be like my ask.
Mhm.
But I have to think of what I'm gonna ask or say each time. And for the first while of doing it, I felt like it had to be something different every. So I actually didn't go every week because I felt like I had to say something.
And
And
were you
so
finding
I
at
was
this,
like, I can't go because I have nothing new to tell.
so it sounds like you come to the decision that you can say the same thing at a lot of these every time, or
Well,
since,
what's funny was I wasn't going every time, so I didn't hear what anybody else was saying week over week,
right.
just, once a month or once a quarter. And so now that I go more often, it's like, oh, well, that dude has this like legit the same spiel every single week, other than throwing in like Happy Father's Day or, it's spring. So I'm like, oh, well, it's perfectly socially acceptable to have the same spiel every week, which going into it, I was like, I have to say something different all the time besides this is who I am and what I do.
Interesting realization to go that, oh, it can be pretty much the same. And yet, what an interesting frame of reference that if you do say something different every time, you may actually draw people's attention in a different way because it's not Bob doing the same. Here's my lawn mowing business again. And, now it's raining, so your grass is growing. You still need me.
Yeah, well, and it's the neurodivergent over processing and taking in more information than
Mhm.
necessary. Because the other thing that I've noticed is that Um, I remember all the people, but all the people don't necessarily remember me. So, a lot of times a lot of the people that go to the local networking events are like local service providers like plumbers, electricians, HVAC, lawn care, um, realtors. Oh man, so many realtors. Right?
Right.
So,
Personal financial services,
yeah,
perhaps.
personal financial services, chiropractic care, other healthcare services,
So
like
yeah, local
all the
local
local
service
small businesses, right?
providers. Yep.
A little bit different than coaching. Some business consultants, but um, I've actually found services for like our personal lives there besides my
Hmm.
business. There's, business services there too. But some of them remember who I am when I call them and say, hey, I need your service at my house,
Right.
such and such broke. But there have been a few where it's either personal or, home or business services. And I'm like, hey, I'm so and so. We've met a few times at this Friday meeting, or we've met once before. And like we had a long conversation after the meeting. It wasn't like you saw me do my spiel and that's it. But my attention to detail is like, I can kind of, I may not remember your name or your business, but I
You remember the
know as soon as you
content
say it, I
and
know who you are and where I met you.
yep.
Whereas I've noticed a lot of other people, either they're meeting just so many people, or it's just not like that's just a different brain wiring. Like I
That's
am taking all of
so
those
funny.
details, and I think that's why I'm exhausted afterwards because my brain is legit cataloging everything that it took in. And I intentionally don't take notes because I'm just trying to be in the moment. But yeah, I don't know if you have similar, like networking for me is
Um,
overwhelming. And I think it's because I'm trying to pay attention to every single thing.
yeah, well, I'm often not even trying to pay attention to everything, but yeah, after one of the first couple meetings for our local chamber, I went to, I announced myself as an ADHD coach, which made me stand out because there weren't anyone else in that space. So I was like, oh, people remember me just because it was different.
Hmm.
Fine. I then went to one of our local history museums and, said something to the one of the guys that I had wanted to connect with, or that he had said, oh, we should talk. He had no clue who I was, and I felt really silly. It had been a few weeks, but I was just like, all right,
Yeah.
never mind. You asked me if I wanted to teach, or if I worked with kids, and again, I don't know if it was the novelty of it for me that I remembered all the content we had covered, but
I
I
really wonder if some of it
remember.
is the neurodivergent like sponge of details because I'm not trying to, I just notice all these things.
Yeah,
Like my
and that's
brain
the
just goes,
thing people
ooh,
don't
this,
get is
that, this,
we're
that, this,
not
that.
we're not trying to do it, or I will remember details about somebody from a conversation, and there are times I have to be careful not to drop too much because it looks like I'm stalking somebody,
And
because I'm
it
like,
freaks people out.
literally, yeah, and it's like, no, really, I just remembered this. I don't remember your name, but I can tell you the entire conversation, and it's like this
Yeah.
weird, I remember some of it, but not your name, but I could tell you
Well,
everything else.
so I know we're 18 minutes in. So, what I remember being taught in undergrad and grad school about networking was a little bit of that, right? So your goal is to make connections. And there actually was an app at one point. I think LinkedIn had bought it at some point that you could like scan people's business cards and make notes about where you met them and the context and everything
Uh-huh.
as a networking thing so that the next time you see the person, like all of that is front of mind.
Right.
But flip the script a little bit, is that a neurodivergent superpower of networking? Even though networking exhausts us or makes us really anxious, we actually secretly have a secret networking superpower of attention to detail, even
It's
though it sort of
interesting.
looks like we're spaced out.
Yeah, well, it'll be an interesting conversation, but I think it also then kind of feeds in. We hit on a couple things that you can do, pre-think what you want to get out of an event. Do some self-care and kind of be grounded coming in, maybe keep going to the same one so you're familiar with it. And, know why you're there. If it's just randomly to meet people and show that you're doing something cool, great. But if it's, I'm looking for somebody to do the flowers for my sister's wedding, great. But giving yourself a purpose while you're in there can help direct the attention, whether that's like you were calling it with your buffer, you've got something to take somewhere to intentionally direct the focus to help, take over the brain's anxiety of going, oh my God, what am I going to say? What if I don't remember what I'm going to say? What are they going to think of me? And just giving yourself a little bit easier way to be in. And then, like you did, sitting down and taking care of your own needs, letting people come to you to a certain degree.
Hmm.
It's funny too, as I've gone to a few of the networking events, I've realized that there are some people with, pretty substantial social anxiety. And, it's like they'll let people come to them or whatever. And it just, that it really is just a microcosm of the world, except that we all have businesses.
Yeah, and it's interesting knowing why you're there. So I've actually had some coaching conversations with people about, you know, trying to make progress with networking or trying to like, I need to go to this event. Okay, but why are you there? So keeping that in mind is like, I had to make a big shift from my goal isn't to just like hand out all the business cards. My
Or
goal
crush
is to
all of them.
connect. Hmm?
Or to
As
crush
I
all of
show the
them.
stack that I've gotten over time. Um, but my goal is to connect and build relationships with people so that it's sort of, someone described it to me last week as a slow burn, right? So it's not like someone's going to immediately need your service, but you'll be front of mind when someone is talking about ADHD and productivity, or when someone's talking about mom brain, we would be front of mind. Um, so I've had to like shift my whole thought process around why I'm at networking, besides getting out of the house. That's a really good reason.
Right.
But
Well,
yeah.
and then the other piece that you and I have talked about, how or where do you want to maintain those relationships, or do you actually have to maintain all of the contacts? And we've both gone
Oh man.
and going that no, no, actually, just because you meet somebody and hit it off, not everything is meant to go somewhere. And that, it takes two. And there are times where we can pursue something to death, but it's like sitting there going, am I interested in doing this right now? And if not, can I let it go?
Yeah, and I think that making conscious decisions and choices. So me telling the anxious voice, like, hey, you don't have to contact every person that you got a card from. You can just hold on to the cards. I mean, I got someone's card last July, and I just had a one-to-one with him like 6 weeks ago about what his business is and how my business might work well with it. I mean, that's like 9 months
Right?
worth of waiting, right? But reminding myself and giving myself permission that I don't have to do anything. And I can choose how active I want to be. And if the conversations only stay in the networking meetings, as long as I keep showing up and keep staying front of mind, that is enough. So reminding myself that even just doing the networking activity is enough. And when I do need the resources, like an HVAC person, then I know how to find one. That's
Yeah,
our HVAC person is somebody that goes to the networking event. So I'm
right.
like,
Oh, when there you go. And that there's more than, that there is some validity in doing some online networking, and it doesn't just have to be in person, but doing it wherever it is and showing up consistently. I've been playing around with LinkedIn and had a couple periods of time where it's like I've been in actual conversations with either people I've met or, second or third degree connections of people I've met. But it's been like, oh, it's not just the random liking, but it really is building that community and building a network of people, which is, I guess, why it's called networking.
ooh, that might be a fun topic to discuss sometime is the virtual networking piece. So we talked about like the anxiety and the energy and stuff that goes into going to events and meeting people and talking about yourself and putting yourself out there. But there's a whole different, similar but different dynamic in the world of LinkedIn and social media marketing and the relationships, because it is networking, building relationships. It's a similar energy draw and a similar anxiety, but it's in a different venue.
Yeah, space and time frame and all of that. But I'm sure we could go on indefinitely, but should we call it right here for the moment?
Yeah, I think so. And it'll be now I have lots of different perspectives to put myself in as I go to networking events.
What would be the most valuable thing you take away from this conversation?
That I'm not the only person who feels this way, and that and that it may be, and that it's okay if it may be just the way that I'm wired.
Sounds like a good place to end it. And thanks for joining us again, and we will catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.